The other day I came across a website that looks at logical paradoxes and tries to explain them. And the couple that I looked at just made no sense, were just utterly moronic. And so I thought I'd kind of share a few of them with you. For those of you who want to check it out, the website is logicalparadoxes.info, which straight away is a bit dubious, but I'll put a link below. The first one that we'll look at is Achilles and the tortoise. Its kind of opening line is, it appears to demonstrate that even the fastest of runners, Achilles, could not catch the slowest of creatures, the tortoise, if the tortoise were given a head start. Straight away, my life experience says, no, that's obviously wrong. But we'll give him a chance to see what it says. To get from one place to another takes time. If the distance between the two is small, or the speed of travel is very fast, then it may take a short amount of time, but it will still take time. That's fair, that makes sense, we're happy. It is impossible to move from one point to another instantaneously. Again, yeah, true. Suppose that the person you have to catch is moving away from you, so in a race, and in the time that it takes you to get from where you are to where they are, they will have moved on. So if you begin at point A, and they begin at point B, then by the time you reach point B, they will be at point C. Okay, we're happy so far. The person you're trying to catch will no longer be at the point you have reached. To catch them then, you will need to reach the point that they are now at. You will have to get from point B to point C. Doing so, this will again take time. Point C is at a distance from point B, and so by the time you have reached point C, your target will have reached point D. This process can repeat ad infinitum without you ever catching the target. That is the point where they lose it. If in a race the tortoise, which moves slowly, is given a head start on Achilles, then no matter how quickly Achilles runs, he will never catch the tortoise. False. If you have Achilles at point A and the tortoise at point B, and over a period of time both running at the speeds that they run at, Achilles being faster than the tortoise, Achilles moves from point A to point B, and the tortoise moves from point B to point C because he's slower, then in the next equal period of time, Achilles can run the same distance from point B to point D and overtaken the tortoise, and the tortoise running slower will move from point C to point E. But because he's slower, he doesn't move the same distance, and so Achilles has taken over him. So, rubbish. Okay, the next one is the arrow paradox. Another one of Zeno's, so not looking hopeful. This shows that motion, this, is impossible. Straight away, I've proven it wrong. It works by taking a snapshot of an arrow at a point, either in space or in time, in its flight. So you fire an arrow, and you take a snapshot. At that point, and at every other point, the arrow is motionless. Okay, you've just said a statement, but that doesn't necessarily make it true. If we had a film of an arrow in flight, so many films have got footage of arrows in flight, and broke it down to its individual frames, we could see that in each frame the arrow is simply hovering in the air, albeit blurred, I imagine, because it's moving when the frame is taken. So it is only when you put all the frames together that the arrow appears to move. In each frame, i.e. at each point, the arrow is motionless. But that's only in the footage, though. You can't break down real time into frame by frame and take a snapshot of it. So, okay. If at every point and every moment in its flight the arrow is still, though, then how is it possible for it to move from the bow to its target? Well, it wouldn't be. It would just be lying on the floor. And so, for it to be in flight and you take a snapshot of it in flight, it has to be in flight. Therefore, it has to be moving. This makes no sense. The other one, up until the last point, that worked. This doesn't work throughout. If the arrow is made of wood at every point in its flight, then it must be wooden. It can't be plastic. Yeah, obviously that is true. If it is sharp at every point in its flight, then it must be sharp, not blunt. Yes, again a true statement. Similarly, not similarly, if the arrow is motionless at every point in its flight, which you haven't really proven to be true, then it must be still, not moving. So in its flight, which is a term of motion, it must be still. Because at every space and time it is still in the film that you've recorded and taken screenshots of. Ridiculous. Contrary to appearances then, arrows cannot move towards targets. In fact, similar reasoning applies to any other alleged case of motion, so it seems that movement in general is impossible.